But here's the deal. I feel like I've got my steps in, I've been to church, and now all that's left is to shout hallelujah, because we are free. It is my pleasure to be here with you to take part in this wonderful, magnificent celebration. And as I received the invitation to participate today, I began to think about my experience on this journey. Now, for some of you, this will be just a day of celebration. This will mark your remembrance of this time, of this day. But I can go back a little further about my remembrance of this time. And it began when I was a little girl. Some of you may remember the days when you could go or could not go downtown Birmingham, Alabama. And so my memory begins with this day when my mother, on a trip downtown Birmingham, she said to me, "Hold on to me. Hold on to me. If anything happens, don't let me go." So can you imagine being a child under 6 years of age, remembering even that? I did, because my mother shared it with such force that I remember it. And so fast forward to now, I reflect back on that time and what she was saying to me, and her urgency to me was because we were not free. So she was afraid that if something jumped off in Birmingham, that if dogs were sick on me in downtown Birmingham, if police elected to batter me or her, she said, "Hold on to me." And so that resonated in my soul all of these years. And I'm pretty sure that it informs the work that I do today. You see, all my life, I have been an astute student, studying, being curious, as many of the young people in this room today are, curious about why. Why have we, for so many years, been so indifferent to the plight of others? Which is why I am so excited to participate in Juneteenth, because today we have something to celebrate. So my hats go off to Kristen and the organizers of Hoover-AHEAD for what you have created. And I sure hope that it lives and will live through each of you. So this student also picked up the New York Times as a young woman and read a story about Grady. Grady was a woman who didn't live in Mountain Brook, but she took care of a family in Mountain Brook. And the story that Pulitzer Prize-winning author Howell Raines wrote was entitled Grady's Gift. So he loved Grady as a child. She took care of him. She's an African-American woman. And it was many years later, when he became an adult, he went to Grady because to him, she was one of the smartest people that he'd ever met. And he was curious, "Grady, why didn't you go to college?" And she said to him, "I always did." She was a great lover of reading. She was an elderly woman now. She said, "I wish I could have, but at the time in Alabama, I could not." And so he wrote the story of Grady's Gift. And he challenged in his New York Times article, why couldn't we all be better than that? And so as a young woman, Grady's story resonated in me and has since influenced the work that I do, working with organizations and individuals, training and teaching about diversity, equity, and inclusion, giving them the language that they could have conversations so that we could all be better. And they had opportunity to go work with Mercedes-Benz to be the second Alabamian hired in Vance, Alabama, to bring that project to life. And what I love, because now we were moving forward, that international organization said, we want to build a team of employees who look like Alabama. And so I was so happy to be a part of that pursuit. But hear me, because all of this stuff had resonated with me. When the opportunity presented itself to join the Mercedes-Benz organization, I said no. And people looked at me like I had horns on my head. How could you say no to a great opportunity? And you know what I said? I said, because they don't hire people that look like me. How wrong I was. Because the world that we were waiting to change, to see change, was changing. And so I did. I helped bring that plant out of the ground, and I'm so happy that it is surviving and thriving today, and its workforce is made up of people who look like everybody here in this room. And then fast forward a few years, you all may not recognize this face. Rodney King. He was being beaten brutally by some police officers in Los Angeles. And as he stood before the world talking at a press conference, he asked the question, can't we all just get along? So isn't that what we're about today? Hoover-AHEAD, getting along. And how wonderful it is that we're proving today by your presence and the work that you do in the community that we are indeed able to get along. But you know, I have to reflect on how people are pushing back against diversity, equity, and inclusion. It has been in the onslaught of criticism, and it continues to be rejected, and messages are being sent to us to make us fearful and afraid. So I had a boss who invited me to New Jersey to launch a diversity initiative in New Jersey, and he handed me this little book. And he said, I want you to read it. It looked like a kid's book. I went, you want me to read a kid's book? It was called Who Moved My Cheese. Y'all heard of this one? I think it's one of the greatest diversity books ever written. You know it? Yes, yes. I think it's one of the greatest books ever written because it is about navigating change. And as I think about how we are faced now with challenges to diversity, equity, and inclusion, it's just people reacting to change, afraid of change. I still haven't gotten a good answer about why people are afraid of change. So we act out of fear, or we act out of anxiety. Fear because of something we've already experienced perhaps, or anxiety because we're anticipating something to come around diversity, equity, and inclusion. So what's the fear about this great room? I would ask anybody. Fear. And I would suppose that I'm talking to the choir, right? Because you all get it. You all get it. But what we're facing today is all about change. So the lesson, and you know this, the cheese is going to move. It's just going to move. And we can choose to move with it, or as my boss said to me, to be left behind. And I can assure you that some people are going to be kicking and screaming, left behind. But we have an opportunity, Hoover-AHEAD, and my fellow citizens of Hoover, to make a difference in the shaping of what we say and experience around diversity, equity, and inclusion. Now, just a few facts why this is important for us to consider. The world is becoming more diverse, not less. And so I don't mean just simply in terms of race or gender. I'm talking about where we come from, where we live, what we know, what we've experienced. We know that we are a community of many races, of many ethnicities, of many experiences, right? We are just a microcosm of the world that is becoming more diverse. 1 of every 6 workers is aged 60 plus. So young people, that means that the old people like me, they're retiring. And there's room for you. And we've got to make room for you because you represent the diversity that is the future. That's our future. Gen Z will be the largest worker demographic. Some of you are Gen Z in this room. Millennials, no longer. Baby boomers, forgotten, right? Gen Z, you represent the future. I can't wait to see the future with you. And then by the year 2027, 60% of the available labor force in the United States will be women and will come from minority populations. That's not Deborah's opinion. You can look at your US Census and it'll tell you this, right? So the cheese is moving. The cheese is moving. And research shows also that with diversity, diverse populations, diverse teams, it's not saying all one ethnicity or race or gender or the other. We're talking about diverse. Diverse teams have been proven to outperform teams that are not. This is the cheese that is moving. So another lesson that I would say to you is to be open to learn and unlearn. You see, we are the sum of our experiences. So everything that I learned, those lessons I told you earlier, impacted, resonated with me, right? And so they inform the work that I do today. Unfortunately, some of us have learned things that are not true. Some messages that we've received from, I dare to say, our parents, our grandparents, have contributed to biases that we might hold or biases that others might hold. So we have the opportunity to unlearn what we think we know. This is an opportunity for us, and particularly to unlearn and to focus first on self. You know what we do in society? We have a tendency to point the finger at others. We say, you need to do this, you could be better. But you know when you do that, you got a thumb pointing right back at you. And so Aristotle says, knowing yourself is the beginning of all wisdom. So I'm challenging you to think about how you show up in the world today. Are you, through your actions, your deeds, your words, how do you treat others, impacting diversity in the world that we will be living in now and into the future? But another thing I came to find out, as I talked to corporate employees and others about diversity, equity, and inclusion, and some of them come into my sessions with their arms folded because they don't want to be there, but the boss said they had to come, right? And what I realized is that what they talk about to their neighbors don't represent the diversity that I talk about. And so what I learned here is that we all need some new language. We need to speak some different language. And so I came up with some language to define diversity. And so I want you to look at this definition and to see if it jives with what you understand diversity to be. Diversity, the broad array of characteristics that make us who we are as individuals or as groups, including the ways we are similar, different, and unique. So if I'm talking about diversity, I'm talking about everybody in this room. Because are we not similar, different, unique? And it's not that difference broad. And so that's kind of eye-opening sometimes when I go into corporate environments and I'm talking to employees, because that's not what they talk to their coworkers about. That's not what they talk to their neighbors about. And that's why it's hard for them to even recognize their own diversity. So with this definition, that's what I want them to do. Another word that gets people off kilter is the word equity. Y'all heard this? Equity. People go out to lunch on this word. But equity, the state of fairness and impartiality that ensures fair treatment, access, opportunity, and advancement for all, while striving to identify and eliminate barriers that prevent full participation by individuals and groups. So the people who are upset about equity, I ask, well, who does not want to be treated fairly and impartially? Anybody? And so that's what I get. Oh, I hadn't thought about it that way. So who can disagree with wanting to be treated fairly and impartially? Nobody can, because we all want that. And I challenge people to think about, particularly in corporate environments, because corporate environments following the George Floyd murder recognized to the tune of many millions of dollars that they invested into equity initiatives, that there were groups, and probably employees and their own employees, who were not treated fairly or equitably when it came to promotions and hiring opportunities. So, going back to equity, who does not want to be treated fairly and with impartiality? And then the light bulb starts to go off, right? Because people come to realize that, yeah, I want that too. I want that too. And inclusion is very simple. It's the act of valuing diversity. Valuing the fact that we are all different, though we share similarities, and we're all unique in our own way. Valuing diversity is a short definition for inclusion. Now, I have many more examples of what inclusion looks like. At the end of my presentation, get your phones out, take a snapshot of my address, and I'm happy to send you 20 ideas for advancing inclusion. But, you know, when you look at this definition, what is there to object to? What is there to object to? Which is why I say we need new language. Language to talk about this topic. My other message that I want you to take away is that remember to be the change you want to see. So, we've heard how diverse and forward-moving the Hoover community is. That will only last so long as you are in it, as you are participated in a forward approach to this community. Be the change you want to see, and that's inviting us to all lead by example. You know, we get messages all around us. We're bombarded with messages, right? From Facebook, from television, radio. You know, you turn on your favorite television show, you think you're being entertained, right? You go see your favorite movie, you think you're being entertained. You don't think about the messages that are coming at you. Messages that are influencing what you think, what you believe. And so I'm asking you not to get caught up in the noise that lends itself to becoming sensational when we talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion, or even politicizing diversity, equity, and inclusion, because we're human. We can get caught up in that. But I want you to remind you of the definitions that I put on the screen a moment ago. And if you can agree with those definitions on the screen, what is not to like? What is not to like? I invite you to keep your eyes on the prize. Don't lose sight of this wonderful moment that you have created here today. And I hope that it becomes magnified and grows bigger and bigger so that the whole community, we won't have a place to keep them when Juneteenth comes again. And so, as I said, I'm talking to the choir. I know this, because you all get it, right? And I know that sometimes in our journey, we get weary, we get tired. We say, why don't someone else join us? And this is the opportunity for you to recognize that you don't walk alone. So you can remember this room, the people who came and sang and danced, right? Gave you a joyous feeling on a Saturday afternoon because it was about purpose. And so find that time when you're at that place to reach out to others who might inspire you to keep walking in this journey. And I say too, have courage. Have courage, because when we leave this space, the world is going to be just as we left it, with all of our good feeling, right? It's going to be just as we left it. And so I want you to stay encouraged. So as I close, I ask you, Hoover-AHEAD, which will we choose to be in this journey? A footprint or a handprint? A footprint or a handprint? To make a footprint or to make an impression or imprint? The footprint, it's powerful, It can be visible. You put your soul to sand or soul in concrete. But you know, with time, with wind and rain and weather, that footprint can disappear. Right? Just with the sands of time, the footprint can disappear. People walk over it. They don't even know that they're walking over it. Or you might choose to be the imprint. The imprint has greater possibility for lasting forever. So leave an imprint. Young man, through your art, you are leaving an imprint. Our poetress, a moment ago, through her voice and her words that she shared, leaving an imprint. Hoover-AHEAD, through your work that was born out of violence and controversy, you are leaving an imprint. And I submit that's what we all can choose to do. So, my closing comments to you: when this ends, this meeting, or this work that we do around diversity, equity, inclusion, when this ends, may we find that we have become more like the people we want to be, hope to be, we're called to be, and may we stay that way better for each other. I want to thank you for the invitation and for your time and for this glorious celebration today. Thank y'all very much.